What if Jon Snow stayed with the Wildlings? Part 2. Let's explore the depths of it in the video. Wyman Manderly looks right at home in the mess hall of Castle Black. He downs his goblet of wine and wipes his lips with his sleeve before looking at Jon Snow and Ygritte.
I've heard a lot of stories about what happened here, but I'm only interested in the truth. What is going on here, Lord Commander? Answer me, and I shall tell you what I know.
Very well. I took part in Mormont's raging beyond the war, and I was tasked to infiltrate the Wildling camp by posing as a deserter. I learned that they wished to march on the war. Given the state of the Night's Watch, I knew we didn't stand much of a chance, so instead I convinced the Night's Watch to let them through, provided the free folk remain in the gift.
But they didn't. I received reports that a host of these free folk ventured south, to Deepwood Mont and Torrance Square, right before the Boltons gave them battle.
Ah, that's true. We knew the Boltons would attack the free folk to legitimize their rule, so we needed to show that we are not foes.
A clever gambit. Shame the bastard of Dreadfort is not the rational type. But with Lord Roose still around, your troubles are not over. The Boltons are eager for Stark blood. My surviving knights who took part in the battle tell me that it was them who sacked Winterfell, not the Ironborn.
Though Jon has sworn an oath to the Night's Watch, he cannot help but feel a stab of pain at hearing what happened to his home. He tries to appear stoic, but his fingers clench into a fist. Ygritte notices and places a hand on his shoulder. Lord Wyman notices as well and nods.
Fear not. It appears your brothers survived the battle. One of the survivors claims he saw two boys matching Bran and Rickon's age leaving the castle after the Boltons fled.
What? Where are they?
My sources claim that the youngest boy, Rickon, was being transported to Skagos. Make no mistake, Lord Commander, the Northmen may despise the Boltons, but they need a Stark to rally under. This Rickon, boy or no, is a Stark, and with him, we shall be able to legitimize the Wildlings' presence here. So it looks like this is in both of our best interests to get this job done.
Jon stares at the massive lord and nods his head. Although Night's Watch is to avoid politics and the conflicts of man, it seems times are changing, and with them, the rules. After the mutiny, he finds himself feeling less guilty about what he's doing. If Bowen Marsh was prepared to do it, then so shall he. However, politics or not, he is still Lord Commander, and he cannot leave on his own. Instead, Ygritte volunteers. Being an expert tracker, she might be the best choice to rescue Rickon. The Manderlys promise ships to transport them, and Wyman Manderly will escort Ygritte. The wind howls over the jagged cliffs of Skagos as Ygritte grips her bow. The longboats barely touch the rocky shore before the Skagosi warriors descended upon them, dragon glass and bow and arrows raining upon them. Ygritte ducks beneath the prow and fires back. Wyman Manderly leaps onto the surface, plate armor gleaming and sword in hand. Against their primitive warriors, the large knight turns into a war god, cutting through men left and right while their own weapons break against them. The sailors and men-at-arms he brought with them leap after him, while Ygritte's wildlings follow suit. Soon the Skagosi retreat, and the ground starts to run red. Despite this welcome, Ygritte continues to push deeper with Wyman at her side. Despite being a wildling, the fat warrior is happy to let Ygritte take the lead, trusting her tracking skills. She soon happens upon a set of wolf tracks, ones too large for any normal wolves. This leads them inland, where more Skagosi wait. They find themselves under attack from the hills, in the forests, and from caves. The casualties mount, but the Wildlings and Northmen press deeper until they come upon a settlement, a cluster of wooden longhouses surrounded by sharpened stakes. As Ygritte climbs a tree, she spots a direwolf padding through the longhouses. For a second, she thinks he's hunting, but then realizes he seems too relaxed. He's staying there. She considers storming the settlement, but then decides to try a different approach. As she approaches, she can see men knocking their bows and preparing to fire. But to their surprise, the spearwife drops her bow and quiver to the ground and announces she wishes to talk. Confused but intrigued, the Skagosi led her party inside. At the center of this settlement is a large fire where a boy sits. His hair is wild and unkempt. On one side is a fellow wildling, and on the other is a direwolf. Shaggy Dog lets out a low growl as Ygritte and Wyman step forward. The Skagosi warriors close ranks. Their leader, Lord Magnar, is a scarred brute nearly a head taller than Willis. He growls at them, but speaks in the common tongue, demanding to know why they are here.
We're here for the boy. Rickon Stark must rule Winterfell with his brothers gone.
The boy is ours now. He lives as we do, and fights as we do. The North left him, so we took him. He is Skagossi now. You are no kin to him.
I'm no kin to the little lord, but his brother, Jon Snow, is.
I know Jon Snow. How do you know him?
The girl speaks truly. It's the name of his bastard brother.
You can see we're friends.
But while Rickon's eyes widen, the Skagossi seem less convinced.
Words mean nothing here, Wildling.
Then let's settle it another way. One we both might understand. You're best against me. If I win, the boy would come with us.
The Skagossi warriors murmur among themselves before their leader grins. A great, hulking warrior steps forward, scars crisscrossing his chest. He grips a massive two-handed axe. The champion swings his axe in a deadly arc, but Ygritte is quicker. She rolls beneath his strike, coming up on his side and thrusting her spear out at his leg. He grunts, staggering but not falling. Ygritte twists her spear and hits him with the butt, but this only angers him. He retaliates with another swing, but she dances away, her movements light and swift. The Skagossi roar as the duel rages, but Ygritte remains focused. She feints left, then pivots, driving her spear into the champion's shoulder. As she pushes it closer, she realizes her mistake, and the warrior backhands her with enough force to send her flying back, the spear flying from her grasp. He roars and then rips the spear out and rushes at her, grabbing her hair. But as he begins to pull her closer, Ygritte jerks her head up and bites deep into his arm. She tears off a bit of flesh until the warrior lets go, a fistful of hair leaving with it. While he staggers back, she screams and pounces on him and sends him toppling over. She picks up a dagger and holds it against his throat. She prepares to finish him, but hesitates. The moment stretches. She sees the fire of defiance in his eyes, the same fire that burned in the Free Folk. But she finds herself thinking of Jon Snow and how he showed mercy to them.
Live to fight another day.
Before the Skagossi can react, several warriors, furious at their champion's loss, rush forward. Wyman Manderly is faster, his sword flashing as he cuts down two before they can reach Ygritte.
Come now. It's unchivalrous to mob a lady like that. Enough. The duel was fought fairly. The boy is theirs.
Osha and Rickon rush forward to their side, but the boy glances back at the chieftain and then bows respectfully.
You took me in. You made me one of you. Old Nan used to say you were all savages, but you don't seem so bad. If that means anything, then fight with me now. Skagos is strong, but so is the North. We have a home to reclaim.
After Ramsay's death, Roose Bolton moves quickly to secure his hold over the North. As he marches up the neck, he recalls his remaining allies, House Dustin, House Karstark, and House Ryswell. He plays upon the old hatreds of the North, painting the Wildlings as invaders who must be eradicated. While some who despise the Free Folk rally to his cause, many of the North's great houses are unconvinced. The stories of Wildlings' aid in defeating the Ironborn have spread, and not all are willing to shed more blood for the Boltons. Most lords declare neutrality. Jon Snow and Mance Rhaegar recognize that this will be the final battle of the North's fate. As they gather the Wildling army, a ship docks at Eastwatch by the sea, and soon after, Rickon Stark makes his way to Castle Black, accompanied by Ygritte and Sir Willis. Their reunion is short, but heartfelt, as Jon embraces his youngest brother, lifting him off the ground and thanking them for their help. Unfortunately, they cannot celebrate for long, as the Bolton forces begin their advance to the Gift. Although they were not able to get as many warriors as expected, they still boasted 7,000 soldiers. All of these are disciplined men-at-arms, knights, and fighters. However, Rickon's arrival helps sway many hesitant lords. Wyman Manderly begins assembling a host in his city, while offering shelter to some Free Folk non-combatants. Meanwhile, House Glover, Tallhart, Hornwood, and Mormont eagerly pledge fighters, having benefited from the Free Folk's presence and suffered Bolton's cruelty. Even a few scattered Karstark men grow disillusioned with Roose Bolton's rule and defect in secret. Jon chooses his battlefield carefully. He avoids the open plains where the Frey cavalry can run them down and the disciplined ranks of the Northmen crush them. Instead, he leads his army deep into the edge of the Wolf's Wood. forcing Roos's soldiers to fight on unfavorable terrain. The Wildlings fortify their position, setting up barricades. Wooden spikes and foresters can ambush them. The only downside is the thick forests make it difficult to unleash their mammoths. Wildling skirmishers rush out and rain arrow fire upon the Northmen's position. Though disciplined, such an assault cannot go unanswered. However, Roos is careful not to take the bait, and instead organizes his army into a phalanx, with lightly equipped men-at-arms in between. Though they advance under arrow fire, their superior armor minimizes casualties. Roos's army, disciplined and trained, advances with shield walls and pikes. The light infantry rushes ahead, clearing obstacles and filling up the trench as the phalanx begins cutting a brutal path through the free folk. Despite their ferocity, the Wildlings struggle against the northern phalanx. Mance fights in the thick of battle, Longclaw flashing as he leads charge after charge, but Roos's forces steadily gain ground. Jon tries to organize flanking maneuvers, but here the men-at-arms Roos has positioned are waiting. These warriors are armed with longswords, maces, axes, and hammers, and beat back the flanking force. Many Northmen and Wildlings falter under this attack, allowing 300 men on either flank to form a shield wall to halt the faltering charge, only for the superior northern cavalry to sweep their ranks. Even the giants struggle against this, as despite their strength, they face off against a forest of spears. A few knights even ride forward and drive their lances into them. Jon and Mance find their forces being pushed deeper and deeper into the woods. It seems like they are about to call a retreat into the Wolfswood when Ygritte sounds her horn. As the first Bolton warrior reaches the woods, he is suddenly lifted off the ground by Lord Magnar. Around him, hundreds of Skagosi warriors, who were kept in reserve, begin to appear, clashing their weapons together.
Witness the might of the Skagosi, first hand.
He tosses the hapless man aside, and his men rush forward. They do not just come on foot, though. From behind, their famed unicorns come rushing out, lowering their heads with their horns pointed at them. The sight of such strange creatures ridden by such vicious men send the Boltons into a panic. They sweep across the battlefield, riding at the edge of the forest alongside some of the Wildling chariots. Charging them from the trees, the warriors slam into Roos's lines, throwing his men into chaos. Their savagery is unmatched, their axes biting through armor and bone. Roose Bolton tries to rally his forces, but it's too late. The northern ranks collapse under the unexpected assault. Surrounded and outmatched, Roose orders a retreat, but then finds himself cut off as 5,000 Manderlys arrive from the south. By nightfall, the battlefield belongs to Jon Snow. The north is free from Bolton rule, as the Skagosi feast upon Roose's innards as their price for victory. With Rickon Stark alive and standing at his side, the Wildlings and Skagosi are hailed as heroes for protecting the Stark name. The war for the North is over, but the war for the world is only beginning. Beyond the North, the war in the rest of the kingdoms continues to escalate. Lord Bolton's death removes only the Lannister loyalist forces in the region, giving them free rein as the Lannisters find themselves embroiled in the wars to the south. The first of these was Aegon VI, who landed in the Stormlands and begins a series of raids, making his way to King's Landing, where he removed Tommen. However, he is far from the only Targaryen who makes an appearance. Daenerys and her warriors make their landing just a few weeks later. Rather than make landfall on the mainland, though, these forces instead land on the Iron Islands. With Victarion's fleet, they retake the Iron Islands from Euron, whose support slowly dwindles, and he is killed. This puts Daenerys in a prime position to strike at the Westerlands, or the Reach, but also the North, if they choose. The North is weary. The war against the Boltons has drained its strength, and Jon Snow knows. As he reads the casualty reports and watches the various northern continents return home, he knows their armies cannot face the White Walkers alone. Unfortunately, with the South still embroiled in war, they cannot rely on them, so he instead turns to the Iron Islands. The stories of her dragons have reached even the coldest corners of the north, and if they are to have any chance of victory, he must seek her aid. When he arrives, he is surprised to find not Daenerys waiting for him at Lord's Port, but a familiar, smaller figure.
Tyrion, I feared that mouth of yours had finally gotten you killed.
Almost. Almost. I could say the same for you. So, you've come here to serve Daenerys?
No, not serve. I come to seek an alliance with her, for the good of the realm.
An alliance? She won't like the sound of that.
Then she'll hate what else I have to say.
As they make their way over to the pike, Daenerys Targaryen is seated on the sea stone chair, looking over at him, her violet eyes studying him carefully.
You come seeking aid, yet you do not bend the knee.
I did not come to debate titles. There are 3 other claimants to the Iron Throne, and yet what I have to say will affect all 3 of you. I came because we face an enemy greater than any of us. The dead march on the south. The White Walkers advance beyond the wall. And the Night's Watch do not have the strength to hold them back.
You expect me to believe in fairy tales? That the dead walk beyond your wall?
Your Grace, Jon Snow is not a man given to foolishness. If he says the dead march, I believe him.
One could argue what you've done with your dragons defies logic. Yet you brought them to life.
You've made your point, but the North was part of my father's domains, and I will not leave it out of my kingdom.
Begging your pardon, Your Grace. I am simply Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. I do not control who the Northmen swear allegiances to.
Do not be coy with me, Jon Snow. You may not hold title, but the Lord of Winterfell is a child, and your brother. Do you truly expect me to believe that you do not influence him?
I suppose you may have me there. But he is my brother, and influence or no, I will not make him agree to anything he will soon regret. Whether he bends the knee is not something I can decide on.
You should know, Jon Snow. I am not a queen without cause. I intend to reclaim the 7 kingdoms.
I cannot promise you anything, but there are always men who fight in search of adventure, especially among the Wildlings, greybeards who leave when winter sets in, and young blood eager for loot and plunder. I can promise you this.
A silence lingers between them, tension thick in the air. Then Daenerys smiles, just slightly.
It will do, for now.
With Jon handling negotiations, the defense of the wall falls upon the Watch. The night is cold and still, as the sentries observe the darkness beyond. Though nervous, they take some comfort in the wall and its ancient wards. But that does not stop the whispering in the wind and the cold that chills them to their bones. As the sentries stand shivering in the battlements, the White Walkers emerge from the darkness. Their pale forms glide through the falling snow. The Watch readies their bows and steel, expecting them to break against the unseen barriers. But to their horror, the creatures do not stop. The wards do not hold. With an ear-splitting crack, ice fractures and parts of the wall tremble. Defenses crumble as if the wall ages 1,000 years in an instant. Ice begins to crumble from its face, and battlements, once carefully tended, crack and shatter. The White Walker's presence only adds to this facing magic. The Watch fights back, arrows finding their marks, but it is not enough. The dead surge forward, scaling the wall with impossible speed. The Watch, depleted by the recent conflicts, can barely hold them back. Even with the Wildlings, they number barely 1,000. Before they realize what's happening, the first White reaches the top. One figure who keeps his cool is Mance. He shoves the first White off, slashing the arms of another, and then decapitating a third. Seeing him fighting so fiercely gives them some hope, and the Watchmen rally around him.
Steel yourselves, men. I may not have worn one of your black cloaks in the years, but I was still a ranger of the Watch. Tremble or not, the wall has withstood 1,000 invasions because of the brave men who stood atop it. This is no different. Take heart and remember your vows. We are the shield that guards the realms of men. This is the only part that matters. Now, fight for your past, fight for your future, and fight for your present.
A roar goes up amongst the scattered sentries, and they begin to rally. Coupled with reinforcements brought up by Ygritte, they manage to hold off the Whites. Through sheer determination, they manage to hold the breach, just barely. But the wall groans under the weight of the onslaught, its very foundation crumbling. The defenders know it is only a matter of time before it gives way completely, and the casualties they suffer were serious. As this first attack falters, ravens are sent to the Wildlings, Skagosi, and Northmen, pleading for help. Soldiers rush to the wall in small groups, or led by their lords, but they come in piecemeal. While the wall itself should be nearly impregnable, the dead do not slow, they do not tire, and it crumbles apart as if they were dying. Yet the Watch holds. The fighting is brutal, and the White Walkers are constantly on the verge of gaining a foothold, only to be beaten back. This results in horrific casualties for the Watch, who cling to the wall. Eventually, Jon Snow arrives, promising relief from the Dragon Queen. Daenerys' dragons prove to be instrumental in turning the tide. As they swoop down, huge sections of the army burn, lighting up the ground in a wall of fire. For a moment, the bleeding is staunched, and the Night's Watch can focus on the dead atop the wall. Mance shouts for his men to focus them down as Jon joins him. They cut down a White Walker and clear a section of the wall just as the flames dissipate. The dragons swoop down once again. Rhaegal strikes along the outer edges of the wall, burning the Whites climbing and sending chunks of ice crashing upon the Whites below. For days, the Night's Watch battles with them. Jon rides up and down the wall, visiting castles and trying to raise morale. He is everywhere, longclaw in hand and hacking through the Whites. He manages to hold them back while Daenerys and her dragons constantly patrol the wall. They have no idea how the White Walkers managed to get so close, but they cannot think of it now. Any doubts the young Targaryen had about these creatures are now gone, and she must hold the line until reinforcements arrive. She spends most of the time strafing their undead armies, but occasionally she also burns sections of the wall to stop Whites from climbing. However, she can only do this sparingly, as though the wall is no longer magic, it is still a useful fortification. It is exhausting work, and he barely manages to keep things together. After a particularly exhausting day in the Shadow Tower, Jon visits the garrison there, but while clearing the dead, a figure emerges on the Bridge of Skulls, cloaked in furs, with eyes gleaming with an unnatural hue. Bran Stark rides on the back of Hodor. He's quickly apprehended by the Watchmen, who take him before Mance.
I can sense your confusion, Your Grace. I can answer your questions. I am the Three-Eyed Raven, and I know why the wall is failing.
Silence falls as all eyes turn to him.
The wall was indeed built with magic and spells, promising to protect the realms of men, so long as the men of the Night's Watch remain true. But the Watch has fallen from its path.
A few men bristle at this accusation, leaving Bran with a hard look. But Sir Alistair was not one of them.
Don't act so surprised. In less than a year, we've had more deserters than ever. We've lost our best and brightest, and we're left with dregs. Some of us have staged a mutiny, and even our honorable Lord Commander has been playing politician. No, the Watch lost its way long ago.
Their faces fall, but Jon stands up.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are or what you've done. It doesn't matter if we're thieves or murderers. What matters is that we are here now. If the wall doesn't think we're worthy, then we correct that. We stop the Night King, no matter the cost. I have an idea.
Oh, this I have to hear.
The Night King wants Bran, right? So he'll be concentrating his forces here. That means we can lure him into a trap.
You'd used your own brother as bait, Lord Snow.
I took the same vow as you. My only brothers now are those standing on this wall.
Didn't think you had it in you. Very well then. We still don't have the manpower for a trap.
Don't worry. I have an idea.
When the next day comes, the Whites are in for a surprise. Flocks of ravens come rushing out of the haunted forest, pecking Whites, tearing the flesh from their bodies and pulling them down from the wall. At first there is confusion, but then they spot the source of this sudden attack. Bran stands atop the wall, carried on a litter by several stewards. His flock halts the advance of the dead, at least temporarily, allowing the rangers to fire upon them. As expected, the Whites scramble to reach him, their numbers overwhelming. But just as they close in, Daenerys and her dragon swoops in, plucking Bran from danger and bringing him to the ground, where he is quickly led away by Sir Alistair on their fastest horses. But as the Whites reach the top of the wall, Jon Snow stands with a few Night's Watchmen. The rest are all straw dummies, propped up by barrels of pitch, tar. The few living rangers scramble to the lift as Jon throws a torch. In truth, most of the Watch and their Wildling allies have slipped out in the middle of the night, leaving only a skeleton force alongside Mance's radar. As Bran rides to safety, Daenerys' dragons unleash torrents of fire at the base of the wall, melting the ice and sending massive chunks crashing down like an avalanche. Now weakened and without its magic, the wall shudders and collapses, burying thousands of Whites beneath it and delaying the Night King's advance. With their numbers so badly depleted, they can't hold the wall for any longer, and their only hope is to buy time. As Bran and his escort flee, Sir Alistair defends him fiercely, but is overwhelmed by the White Walkers. he falls in battle, buying just enough time for the remaining Night's Watchmen, Northmen, and Wildlings to reach Daenerys' army, now marching through the Gift. Within the Wolfswood, they make their stand. Jon Snow, Mance Rayder, and the remaining forces prepare themselves. The dead march in endless waves, their hollow eyes glowing with the eerie blue light of their master's will. Giants lumber forward, their massive forms crushing everything in their path. The first clash is brutal. The undead swarm the barricades, their relentless assault forcing men and women to fight with every ounce of strength they have left. Giants offer their support, picking off White Walkers with their bows or using their strength to tear Whites apart. Jon and Mance rally their troops, cutting through the Whites. From above, Daenerys commands Drogon and Rhaegal, their fire scything through the dead, burning hundreds at a time. But they don't just target the dead. They burn the trees, turning parts of the forest into an inferno. As ash and embers fall upon them, the Whites are slowed. However, the White Walkers resist the heat. On the front lines, Tormund Giantsbane leads a charge of Wildlings, driving spears into the undead and hacking them with axes. Jeor Mormont stands beside him, his sword flashing in the pale light. The Unsullied form disciplined ranks, their spears piercing the Whites with deadly precision, but even their training begins to falter under the sheer numbers of the dead. Then, the Night King arrives. He strides through the chaos, untouched by the battle raging around him. Every step he takes spreads ice, freezing the ground beneath him. Even the dragon fire cannot stop him. Daenerys and Drogon swoop in, the dragon unleashing a torrent of fire upon the Night King. But as the flames engulf him, he walks past unaffected. Instead, Jon cuts his way through them. Longclaw flashes in the dark as his escort tries to get him to safety, but each man continues to fall. Mance himself joins them, holding the Whites back almost single-handedly, determined to hold off the dead so Jon can reach their true enemy. Jon charges, swinging Longclaw at the Night King, but the ancient being blocks his strike with unnatural ease. The two engage in a deadly duel, the steel clashing against ice. Jon's breath comes in ragged gasps as he struggles to land a single blow. The Night King is stronger, faster, and more relentless than anything he has ever faced. Behind him, Mance hurls his dragonglass spear at the Night King's exposed back. The Night King turns and catches the spear midair and shatters it with his bare hand. But the distraction is enough. Jon sees an opening and lunges. He drives Longclaw through the Night King's chest, piercing the ancient ice where his heart should be. The Night King freezes, his expression turning to one of shock as cracks begin to spiderweb across his body. Then, with a sound like shattering glass, he explodes into icy shards. The battlefield falls silent. One by one, the Whites collapse, their master's will extinguished. The White Walkers screech and crumble to dust, their ancient magic undone. The dead fall where they stand, and their endless march finally halted. With this victory, the North is now safe, and the Wildlings are free to return to their homes. However, thousands decide to join Daenerys instead. Many former raiders find the prospect of raiding the rich southern lands enticing. Even a few giants join her. As for the Night's Watch, with the White Walkers destroyed, their purpose has been served, and many happily pledge themselves to the new queen. Among them is Jon Snow, who becomes their commander as they conquer the rest of the Seven Kingdoms. That's our theory. Westeros is a land filled with exciting stories and possibilities, and we love exploring them. If you want to accompany us on this journey across the Seven Kingdoms and beyond, then please like, share, and subscribe to our channel.